Today I wanted to talk about the Flintstones, the 2016 comic series by Mark Russell, Steve Pugh, and Chris Chuckry. I have a lot of love for the original Flintstones cartoon, and I even sort of loved the Flintstones movie, but I had no idea what I was getting into with the Flintstones comic book adaptation. I had some trepidation going in. I was told the book was more mature and gritty, and knowing how those words often ruined reboots, I wanted to stay away. But my curiosity eventually won out, and I decided to check out the series. The Flintstones was a limited run, only 12 issues, and while it wasn't around long, I'm just happy it was around at all. The Flintstones as a comic series did something kind of amazing. It remade the original Flintstones, and for the most part, it worked really well. And I think there are 3 big reasons why it worked so well. Firstly, because the series embraces social commentary way more than I thought it would. Secondly, because the series embraces the humor of the original series. And thirdly, because the series recontextualizes the original cartoon in a way that feels clever and fair. It's sort of hard to explain, but I'll try to do it justice. Some say the original Flintstones wasn't even a show for children, although I'm not entirely sure if that's true. Regardless, the Flintstones wasn't afraid to use some light social commentary. Adoption, infertility, and the plight of the working class were frequent themes. And although it was kept fairly light, it didn't go unnoticed. The Flintstones comic series turns that all up by an order of magnitude, and absolutely means to be noticed. Any and every issue in modern day life is fair game for writer Mark Russell, and he has something to say about all of them, rarely pulling his punches in the process. This commentary becomes a backbone of the series, which otherwise only follows a simple story arc. Science, faith, and social institutions are a frequent area of examination for the series, but it also goes into things like love, loss, guilt, war, politics, consumerism, capitalism, and gentrification. Because the Flintstones is, and always has been, a way to examine and criticize modern life, even if the easiest way to do so is by going back to the Paleolithic era. From a humor standpoint, the new series pretty well matches the original cartoon. Puns and double entendres are still a staple, and there are plenty of visual gags too, that's nothing new. But the way the humor matches up between both versions of the Flintstones is important, I think. The new Flintstones comic series is a complication of the original, taking things that may or may not have been important in the cartoon and turning them on their heads. It would be easy to feel alienated by that if it weren't for the humor. The jokes exist firstly to make you laugh, but secondly to remind you that you are still in bedrock. This is a world that you know and hopefully care about. Without it, the social commentary we talked about before would mean nothing. The world we were reading about would be entirely alien, with only character names hearkening back to something entirely different. So it's important that the puns and double entendres and visual gags made the jump to the new series, because it's important that the humor matches the original Flintstones cartoon, maybe even more important than anything else in this series. Lastly, and I think this is the strongest part of the new comic book series, is the way it recontextualizes the original cartoon. Mr. Slate is still a quarry owner, but this time, a quarry owner who willingly participated in genocide. Animal appliances are still animal appliances, but this time they can talk to each other and don't like the lives they've been given. Fred and Barney still wear those furry hats, but this time they're part of a military uniform, as Fred and Barney are veterans and are having a hard time dealing with the horrors of war. Even Fred Flintstone's classic catchphrase has been recontextualized as a nonsense phrase provided to him by a veterans counselor, something to help him cope with life. And this is where a lot of the comments about the comic series being mature and gritty come from, because all of a sudden it's not so fun, it's maybe even a little bit heartbreaking. But it's not done for shock value, it isn't cheap. It feels right because it's treated with respect and isn't ever played as a joke. It ends up being a respectful recontextualization, which, to me, is better than a straight reboot or remake. At the end of the day, these 12 issues were a return to the Flintstones that I didn't even know I wanted. It came and went, short and sweet, and let us look at the Flintstones from a new perspective, and maybe even taught us some real-world lessons along the way. And it worked because it evolved and complicated what made the original cartoon so great. It stuck to its guns on social commentary. It had a sense of humor like the original, even to the point of nostalgia, and it respectfully recontextualized the original cartoon in ways that were both entertaining and eye-opening. So, if you watched the original Flintstones cartoon, I definitely recommend you try out this comic series. It's a little strange in concept, I will admit, but it's daring and does some really interesting things. Most importantly though, it recontextualizes a fantastic cartoon in a way that feels both respectful and inspired.